I just wanted to introduce myself and also say thank you. You guys are really key to this program happening. We couldn't do it without teachers volunteering. The kids can obviously be kids and a little bit of a pain sometimes, but they also give you a lot of love. So there is the cost benefit of that definitely outweighs. So I hope you guys have fun with it. There's a lot of cool things that the kids have never experienced. The goal of the program is to really teach them where their food comes from. Kids think that their food just like pops into the grocery store and they don't really think about it coming from the ground. So it's a really just cool experience. And I think like when you're able to harvest with them, like it is just mind blowing to them that they grew their own food. So it's just something that's really cool, and it's a different experience that not a lot of people get to see. I definitely wish my school or I was a part of a school garden when I was a kid. So thank you again for being here. And I guess, Madison, do you want to go over the schedule a little bit of kind of just a rundown of stuff? And so I'll let you take it over from here, and we can do a little round robin of introductions too. So I'll hand it off to Madison.
Awesome. Hi guys, I'm Madison. I will be who you primarily work with. I do all the lesson planning. I run our weekly meetings, and I make sure you have everything you need to be the teacher for your school. Just a quick rundown of what's going to go on tonight. We're going to do some short introductions, and then I'm going to have somebody pop on in just a few minutes to talk to you guys about how to grow food, and she's kind of going to do her presentation based off of what we're doing this semester in the garden club and what we're doing with the students. And then when that ends, we're going to talk about some behavior management techniques and just some general concepts of what goes on at the garden program and how to handle everything. And then we have another speaker hopping on at 7. This is a new speaker, so we're excited to have her join us. And she's going to be talking with you guys about how to work with students that have disabilities, because we do have a variety of students in our program. So I think that'll be very beneficial, regardless of if you're doing after school garden program stuff. I think it's beneficial just to know in life. And then after that, I'm going to talk about lesson planning and how all of that goes down and how materials get to you and back and forth, just how everything works so that everything runs smoothly. So let me pull up my PowerPoint for tonight. Let's see. I got to figure out how to do a share screen, present my entire screen. Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I know you wanted me at 6:10, so I'm 3 minutes early.
Awesome. Well, we're just gonna letting them say their names. I had a PowerPoint, but I can't figure out how to present it, so I'll work on that. Just tell me your name, your major, and like a fun fact or why you wanted to get involved. So, Danielle, I'll let you go first.
Okay, my name is Danielle. I study exercise science at Georgia Southern. This is my 3rd year. And something interesting about me, I guess, is I did agriculture for 3 years in high school. So I know a lot about the plant cycle and floriculture, horticultural landscaping. We did it all.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Sweet. Well, you're going to definitely be a big help in getting those big concepts to break down for their little brains and help them understand that. Maggie?
Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a dual certification major this year, and I'm not really involved in after school events, but I just thought this would be good to get interaction with kids.
I don't think I heard her very well. I'm going to ask Madison, will you mute when somebody, I think I couldn't hear you. So I didn't hear any of that, Maggie. So could you please say it one more time?
Okay, so I'm Maggie. I'm an elementary SPED dual certification major. and I'm not really involved with any other gardening events, and I just thought it would be a good opportunity to get involved with kids before I'm a teacher.
Dr. Leahy, if you want to go, you can go ahead and start after that as well for your presentation, whatever you have for us.
Okay, great. So I'm Dr. Leahy. I've been at Georgia Southern for 23 years, something like that now. And I actually, gosh, it's been probably about 10 years ago, had the idea for this after-school garden program and got together with some colleagues on the Georgia Southern campus, and we kind of grew it into this great program that it is today. And so we're so excited that you, Danielle and Maggie, are volunteering to teach in the garden, and Madison leading the charge this year. That's exciting, and I am so thrilled that people are carrying on this wonderful vision of reaching kids through growing plants. It's just it's a great way to interact with kids, and a great way for them to learn about sustainability and the world around them. So thank you all, and Cami, of course, you for making sure that this continues as it does. So I will just go ahead and switch into present mode. I guess I didn't mention that I'm a professor of biology, and I am actually a plant person, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm super passionate about plants. So I try to share that enthusiasm with everyone I meet. So I'm going to give you just a little rundown of some of the topics that you'll be covering in the after-school garden program this spring. And feel free to jump in and ask questions anywhere. I don't want to just drone on. I want this to be more interactive. So I will go ahead and hit present, see if I can get this to work. Can you see that? I can't see you, so could you?
I think some people have been saying that they've been having trouble with Google Hangouts. That Zoom is has been working better. So if that does happen, we can pop off real quick, and Madison can update the calendar invite to a Zoom. But if I'm not sure, let's see if you want to.
Were you able to see that present?
No.
No. It's asking me questions.
I can see if it works for me too, and if it does, you can just oh, there we go. You're good.
Okay. Awesome. I think I've had this crash before when I actually turn it to present on my PowerPoint, so I think I will just click through these without the present mode on. So, and I will put you all over here in the corner so I can see your faces. Let me just get set up here. Yeah, I have gone exclusively to Zoom lately. I used last spring, I only used Google Meet because we really didn't have access to Zoom. So I'm much more expert at Zoom than I am at Google Meet now. But anyway, okay, so a little bit of background about After School Garden Program. Or the plants that you'll be teaching about. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an outline. Of course, we have to start out with what is a plant. Since you're teaching people about plants, you need to know what a plant is. We'll talk a little bit about life cycles because I know that's your first day. Then we'll be talking about plant parts, root stems, leaves, flowers, fruit, and seeds. And with the seeds, we'll be talking about different types of seeds relating to seed dispersal. And then we'll talk very briefly about seasonal planting and types of soil. And then we'll end with pollination. And this is the interactive part, so you can unmute yourselves. So what do you think makes a plant a plant?
Photosynthesis.
Okay, a plant can do photosynthesis. What else?
It has chlorophyll. Well, I don't mean to read off the screen, but it's got chlorophyll.
Okay. Chlorophyll does photosynthesis. Is there anything else specific to a plant? Danielle, you have all kinds of plant background. Maggie, do you, you're going to be a secondary teacher, so, or did you say secondary?
I'm an elementary teacher.
Elementary. Okay, so this is super important for you to know because you'll be teaching the next generation. So, okay, so plants have more than one cell. They do photosynthesis, they have chlorophyll, and they have special cell walls that have cellulose in them, but that's not all that makes a plant a plant. All of those characteristics are actually shared with other groups of organisms like algae. But plants are the only thing, oops. Plants are the only thing that start off as an embryo. So the only thing with those characteristics that start off as an embryo. And what I mean by that is that you have an actual fertilized egg that grows inside of the mom's tissue. So this protected embryo is super important because it keeps this organism from drying out on land. So that embryo is what makes a plant a plant. We actually call plants embryophytes because they are plants that have an embryo in them. All right, so let's test your knowledge of plants. Which of these are not plants?
Bacteria.
Danielle, I saw your
bacteria.
What?
The blue-green bacteria.
Bacteria is not a plant. Good. All right. You can do photosynthesis, but it's not a plant. What else?
Mushroom.
Did you say mushroom? Okay. Yes. A mushroom is also not a plant. That is a fungus, right? Okay. Anything else here not a plant?
Sponge.
I think Danielle said sponge, if I was lip reading properly. That is correct. What is a sponge? It's actually,
I'm
It's
pretty
actually-
sure it's like
it's actually an animal, isn't
some
it?
type of animal.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, one more, and that is the green algae is not a plant, but everything left over here, moss, fern, pines, and hibiscus are all examples of plants. They're just at different stages of complexity. Oops. This does not want to advance. All right. So now that you know what a plant is, we're going to talk about plant life cycles. And of course, plants start from seeds. So a seed germinates and becomes a seedling and will grow into a juvenile plant, which will eventually reproduce with flowers. Those flowers, if they get pollinated, they will become fruits. So the flower actually turns directly into a fruit. You can kind of see the leftover parts of the flower here at the back. Those are the structures that were in the back of the flower. And then the fruit just grows right out of it. It turns out that the fruit is actually an ovary. So when you eat fruit, you're eating ovary. So that is the life cycle of a plant. We'll look at plant parts. So plants, and of course, we're restricting ourselves here to flowering plants. There are other plants that don't flower, but in the garden, you'll be just talking about flowering plants. So plants, of course, have roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and then the flowers turn into fruits, and inside of the fruits are seeds. So those are the key components or organs of a plant. And so the root has special functions. The root anchors the plant. It absorbs water and minerals, and it can move those water and minerals throughout the plant. And it can actually also store food. So you have a pretty obvious example of a vegetable here that is a root, which is what?
A carrot.
A carrot. Can you think of any other vegetable examples that are roots?
Potatoes.
Okay, that's a good guess, but Cami knows I'm going to say this is not, potatoes are not roots, believe it or not. Potatoes are actually stems that are underground. So you can surprise your kids with that knowledge. So Okay, so potato, that was a good guess, but wrong. Any other guesses?
A radish.
A radish, excellent. A radish is a good example of a root, and I think you often plant radishes in the after-school garden. So that's a perfect example of a root snack. Others that you can think of?
Is an onion?
An onion, that is also a good guess. It has roots on it. This is actually what an onion looks like. So the roots come out here, but the onion is actually sort of a stack of leaves on top of each other. And if you think about when you chop an onion, you have layers and layers. So those are actually leaves. So anyway, so we've got a few good examples. We've got carrots, we have radishes. Sweet potatoes are another example. Turns out sweet potatoes are not at all related to potatoes. They actually are a root, okay? So those all do a good job of storing food for us. Stems bear the flowers and the leaves, so they come off of the stem. They provide support for the plant, and they also are moving water and minerals and food all through these tubes throughout the plant. And some of those plants actually have a storage function, which means that we can eat them. So here's another example. So give me some examples of stems that we eat.
Celery.
Good guess, but wrong. Celery is actually a leaf. It is the petiole that connects to the leaves. So, but it is connected, you know, at the very bottom, the base, that's actually a whole bunch of leaves coming off of that stem. And so that kind of white chunky part at the bottom is actually the stem that holds it all together. So, any other guesses?
Broccoli?
Broccoli, okay. Broccoli is actually flowers. So those are just about ready to open up into flowers. And if you've ever grown broccoli, which you might this year, if you leave it too long, those green buds will open up into yellow flowers. So broccoli is actually a whole head of flower buds. So of course we have asparagus, right? And Danielle, you guessed one earlier.
I did?
You did?
Oh, the potatoes?
The potato! So the potato is a stem. Okay. All right. So those are a few examples of stems that store food. There's some others out there, but they're less common than some other vegetable kinds of examples. Oops. Okay. Then leaves are another key organ of a plant. They do photosynthesis, which means that they make food for the plant. And they have two parts, the blade, which is usually the part that does photosynthesis, and the petiole. And Madison, the petiole is the celery that you're thinking of, and that connects into the stem, okay? So we actually eat a lot of different leaves. Can you think of any leaves that we eat?
Spinach.
Spinach, excellent. Yes, spinach is a leaf. Others?
Lettuce?
Lettuce, good. All right. And a lot of our herbs are actually leaves, things like mint and tarragon and oregano and all those things you like to put into your spaghetti sauce. So, all right. So those are our leaves. And then flowers, their function, they're the reproductive organ of a plant. And so they are functioning in attracting pollinators to move pollen away from the plant and to bring pollen into the plant. And so we actually eat some flowers, and Maggie already guessed one, which was?
Broccoli.
Broccoli, right? Okay, can you think of any other flowers that we eat?
Is bell pepper considered a flower?
That is not a flower, but it comes from a flower. It's the next step. So hold on to that thought. We'll get there. Danielle is frozen. But if you think about broccoli has close relatives, cauliflower is actually flowers as well. And you can eat some orchids. And if you've ever seen pansies, pansies are blooming right now, but pansies are actually edible. So they are a lovely addition to your Valentine plate. So those are fun. All right. Sorry, I'm struggling with getting this to advance. All right, then, Madison, what is a fruit? The fruit is what comes after the flower falls off and it surrounds the seeds. So if you cut into that bell pepper, you find seeds inside. If you cut into a pumpkin, you find seeds inside. So things that we typically call fruit, usually we are thinking of juicy, sweet fruits, but that is only one kind of fruit. So acorns are actually fruit. These little berries are fruit. And the little wind-blown seeds of a dandelion are actually fruit. Each of these is an individual fruit. Okay, so basically a fruit is a mature ovary that protects the seeds. Looks like we lost one here. Maybe she'll come back.
Yeah, I think she's having internet issues, and it seems like we all are.
All right, so which of these is not a fruit? Maggie, we're all looking at you now. We've already guessed some of these, right? So we know they're not.
The potato.
Potato's not a fruit. It is a, what is it?
Stem?
A stem. Yes, good. All right. Anything else?
A carrot.
The carrot. What's carrot?
It's a root.
Yep. Good.
Lettuce.
Lettuce. And what is that?
A leaf.
Yep. And the onion we already talked about. What is an onion?
Was it a flower?
It's actually leaves. Remember the leaves layered on top of each other? We call it a bulb. So it kind of has all different components in it. It's got a few little roots at the bottom. It's got the leaves at the top, and there's a little tiny stem in the middle. So, but all the rest of these are fruit. So tomato, we don't think of tomato as a fruit because it's not sweet, but it has seeds inside. So it is a fruit. A peach obviously is a fruit. A cucumber is a fruit because it's got seeds inside as well. Not all fruits are juicy. Some of them are dry at maturity, like the crepe myrtle, and these are out in force right now. I actually just cut some from the Aldi parking lot for my class today. So I brought them. Oh, I won't look for those right now, but I've got some actual crepe myrtles right here. And then corn is actually fruit as well. So it's sort of the seed melded to the fruit wall. All right, so those are all the fruits. And then what next comes the seed. And a seed is, Dan Jansen, who's a famous ecologist, says that a seed is more than a spacecraft and a bag lunch for the embryo. So the seed actually provides some way to move away from the parent, and the bag lunch is extra food for the offspring. So it's an embryo, it's food from mom, and then it's a coat over the top of it, a seed coat. So that's the whole next generation. So can you think of seeds that we eat? Sunflower seeds. Okay, good. And believe it or not, sunflower seeds, the seed part that we crack, that's actually a fruit with the seed inside. So the part that you pull out of the middle is the seed, and the part on the outside is actually a fruit. So, okay. Anything else?
Chia seeds.
Chia seeds, yes, definitely. I don't eat those often, but I assume they're seeds. What do we got here? Those are actually bean seeds. So, you make bean soup, those beans, and split peas and all those kinds of things. Those are all seeds. Okay. Also, things like walnuts. The actual inside of that is the seed, pecan, etc. So those are all examples of seeds that we eat.
I have a random question.
Yes.
What would happen if you would plant a bean, like a black bean seed? Like a dry one?
It could potentially grow depending upon how it's been treated. So if something was done to kill the seeds to keep them from germinating, then it won't.
Like they get before it gets to the grocery store you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you grow a black bean plant and you harvest the seeds that are produced inside the pod, then you would definitely be able to grow a new one from the old one. So
do you think like most of the black beans that you get from the grocery store, they've been treated some way so they won't germinate? Or is it random on whether?
I am not sure about that.
I don't know why that just popped into my head. I feel like I always have really random questions, but I was like,
But I mean, it would be an awesome source of seeds, cheap source of seeds for a garden program or whatever, if they would germinate. So I don't know. They may do something to kill them, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Thanks.
You wouldn't want them sprouting in the bag. That would be bad.
No, and they don't usually. I mean, they usually they're non-perishable generally. They'll go and you give them out at food pantries and stuff like that. So I would think they would probably do something, but
yeah. So, but seeds, of course, have to get away from the parent plant. So they have different mechanisms of dispersal. And really, it's the fruit that's around the seed that's doing the dispersing for it. But they can disperse by wind, by water, by animals. So here's some examples of wind dispersal. These are light, dry fruits, like maples and dandelions that have kind of the twirly bird wings on them. And then there's water dispersal. I don't know, can you all see me or can you just see my presentation? You can see me too? Okay, I can't see me on my screen. But this is my favorite water dispersed seed. Do you know what this is?
Madison she has one in her, like next to her desk. I don't even know how it got there. And she's like, what is this? And I don't know how it got to her. I have no clue, but I mean, I will let the others guess. But you can maybe hold it up a little bit higher. You can't. There you go.
Okay. It floats.
It's tropical.
Is it a coconut?
It is a coconut. This is the whole coconut fruit. And what you see at the grocery store is actually just the seed that's on the inside of it. So let me see if I can find mine quickly.
Right, and you generally don't even really see the seed. You just see the shavings. That's inside of the seed.
So anyway, but yeah, this is the fruit. It will float. And it's a great way to be dispersed if you live on a tropical island and you're surrounded by water. And yeah, so that coconut has all sorts of extra food on the inside for the offspring. That's the bag lunch. It has a very large bag lunch for the coconut. Animals are good seed dispersers as well. We have kind of hitchhiker types of seeds. Like the kind you have to clean off of your dog if she goes and runs in the woods. We have also the kind that are ingested. So lots of different kinds of red berries and things that have seeds inside of them get eaten by animals and then deposited with fertilizer someplace far away from the original parent. And then we also have some species of animals that store nuts, like the squirrels. So of course they store them for the future and they forget where they buried them. So they're actually planting the acorns. So these are animal dispersed seeds. So I always like to share with the kids that they can make a stir fry of plant organs. So you've got roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds in this stir fry. We've got carrots. We've got asparagus. You could actually have them create a recipe. We've got lettuce. We've got broccoli, which is the flower, snow peas, which are a fruit, and the yellow and red peppers, which are also fruit. And then tofu is beans, right? So those are seeds. So you got every organ of the plant involved in this stir fry. All right. So we're going to switch up to seasonal planting just really quickly. One of the big differences between seasons, of course, is that you have longer day length in the summer and shorter day length in the winter. And so the kinds of things that you're able to grow with lots of sun are fruits. So we've got corn, which is a fruit. We've got strawberries, which is a fruit, and the watermelon. So the plant has to produce all kinds of sugar and then store that sugar in its fruit. So it needs lots of sunlight to be able to do that. So typically you see more large fruits being produced in the summer. But in the winter, I guess fall or winter, you see kind of more the leafy greens and some of the underground storage kinds of things. So you have spinach and kale. And I know kale has been a great grower in our after-school garden program. I think we've produced more kale than anything else in that garden program. And then carrots over winter. So they'll grow and then store underground, and then they'll sprout back out in the spring. So that's just a word about seasonal planting. Then you'll also be talking about types of soil. So there's really three main types of soil. There's sand, which has large grains, silt, which has intermediate grains, and then clay, which has tiny grains. And if you compare here, this is what a typical sand is relative to clay, which is actually invisible at this scale. Silt is a tiny dot, and clay is so tiny that you can't even see it. So typically you have a mix of these three kinds of soil in a garden. So, or in unless you're at the beach, you have some kind of mix here. And the mix of all three of them together equally is called loam. And so you've got half sand, half silt, and half clay. Or a third, sorry. You can't have three halves, can you? So about a third of each would be your loam, okay? And then these different types of soils have different properties. So things that are mostly sand, look back to those grains of sand. Think about how water will filter through sandy versus clay soil. Which of those two types of soil would be better at holding water, sand or clay?
Clay.
That's right. So those tiny little pieces of clay sort of stick together and they don't let the water filter through. So it's always good to have a little bit of clay in your soil. But if you have too much clay in your soil, then it just packs really hard and you just can't, the roots can't get through it. So it's good to have a mix of kind of all three of these types. Okay. Okay, and that takes us to our very last topic, which is pollination. Always one of my favorites. So pollination is just moving the pollen from from the anther, which is the male part, to the stigma, which is the female, the top of the female part right here. And if the pollen moves from here to here on a single flower, then it's not crossing with, it's not crossing its DNA with anything else. So the best option is for it to send that pollen out somewhere else to pollinate a different flower. And then pollen to come in from somewhere else and land on this stigma. And so plants can do that by sending their pollen out on the wind, very, very occasionally on water, but most of the time on animals. So animals are good pollinators. So why would pollinators want to bother to visit a flower? Well, they would be attracted to them from different colors, from their shape, from their size, from the scent. So that scent would bring them in. And then once a flower gets a pollinator there, then it has to reward it to get it to come back. So it can reward it with nectar, which they eat. Pollen, some of them eat pollen, like bees feed pollen to their babies. So they collect it and bring it back to their nest. Resin is another thing that flowers will provide as a reward that's used by different kinds of pollinators. Oils, heat, fat bodies, all kinds of different things that are used as rewards. So we have sort of these groups of characteristics of flower colors and types and reward types and what the flowers look like that tend to attract certain types of pollinators. So for example, bees like bright colored flowers, blue, yellow, and they can actually see ultraviolet. So they can see things that we cannot. So if you shine ultraviolet light on a flower, a lot of times you'll see stripes on it or other markings that we can't see otherwise. But the bees can see it. So they're attracted to these colors. They need a landing platform. You can see this bee here is sitting on top of the flower. So it had to land in order to be able to stick its tongue into the flower and pull the nectar out. So a lot of times they need honey guides. You can see these little stripes that tell them, hey, go right here. This is where the nectar is. And then on the way, they're going to get dusted with pollen, and they're going to deposit the pollen on the female part of the plant. So those are sort of characteristics of bee-pollinated plants. Butterfly-pollinated flowers, they also have to have a landing platform. That butterfly has to sit down and then unroll its tongue and stick its long tongue into a tube. So these are very much tubular shaped flowers. And typically you'll see like sunflowers and these types of flowers have long tubes, a whole bunch of long tubes. There's a lot of flowers in there it looks like one flower, but it's actually dozens, probably hundreds of flowers all packed together here. And then there's nectar at the base of that tube for the butterfly. For flies like stinky things. They like rotting meat. So the flies are attracted to dull red and brown colors because they think it's rotting meat, and they like those foul and fruity odors. So what they're coming to do is to lay their eggs there because they think it's rotting meat and it's going to be food for their offspring. So they're tricked into coming to pollinate those flowers. And then birds are attracted to red flowers. They like lots of nectar. And they cannot smell. So if you have been told before, well, don't touch the baby bird because its mom will smell you and then it will reject the baby, that is completely false because they do not have a sense of smell. So they like red flowers and they don't need a landing pad. So they just hover in midair and they stick their beak and tongue down into a long nectar tube and hover and suck out all of that, lots and lots of nectar that's in the flower. Bats are also pollinators, and they pollinate super sturdy flowers. They just kind of crash right into them and they get covered in pollen, and they're usually in tropical areas. But because they pollinate things at night, these plants don't have to waste any energy on beautiful colors because they're not visible at night. So they're usually dull white and green. And then wind pollination happens as well. So we have wind pollinated crops, quite a few wind pollinated crops that don't have petals. They don't need any petals. They don't need to attract anything. So they don't have to be pretty. They don't have nectar because they don't need to reward anything. And they don't have any pretty colors, but their anthers, the male part, has to be very well exposed so they hang out. And then the female parts also have to hang out to catch the male pollen. So this is the female part. It's kind of like a comb that hangs down and gathers the pollen as it blows by. And then here's the male part of the same. This is a maple, and this is the male part. So those kind of dangle and the pollen blows off of those. And then here is, have we ever planted corn? I feel like we don't plant corn very often. But if we did plant corn, we would have to plant multiple rows of it because the wind has to blow the pollen from one row to the next row to the next row in order to get corn. And so typically you would take off the male part and shake it onto the female part. The female part is the silks here to get pollination to happen in a small garden.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point. Sorry, I don't mean to, it's like you're about done, but some vegetables specifically need cross-pollination to actually produce. And I think that's really, a lot of people don't know that, but like squash, or what are some other ones, Lissa, that need to have, because some are self-pollinating.
Yeah, blueberries have to have another plant out there, usually a different variety to make successful pollination or successful fruit production.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of plants that are sort of that need these pollinators and have to have another individual out there. They can't just self-pollinate. So these pollinators are super critical for agriculture to be successful. And so people actually literally pay for people to truck their bees into their bean field and leave their beehives there for a few weeks to pollinate the beans. So, and many other crops as well. So that is, my time is up. I had 30 minutes and I ran over by just a couple. So do you have any questions for me? And I'll just leave you with my contact info if you do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. I know this is really important information, especially for our new teachers and kind of having an idea of what they're going to be teaching about this semester. Even though we do have lesson plans, I think it's really important for them just to kind of get a feel beforehand so they can have that in their mind of, okay, maybe if I don't know like enough about pollination or photosynthesis, like that's something I can take the time to think about before that week comes where we actually teach it. So having you join us is always awesome and very helpful, and we just appreciate you so much.
Well, as you can tell, I enjoy plants. I very much appreciate all of you for the volunteering that you're doing, the hard work of teaching these kids. And if you have any questions at all about plants, or I have lots of sort of plant supplies. If you need seeds or things like that, I have kind of a good collection of that. So I'm happy to share those if you'd like to grab some to take to the schools. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. Good to see you all. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so before our next speaker comes in, I just wanted to take a second. Let's see what my schedule says to talk about.
Okay, let's first call Zach out for being late and then make him introduce himself.
All right, Zach, it's your turn to introduce yourself. We've already gone through some introductions when we got started. So if you will, hop on and tell us your major and maybe give everybody an overview of what your role is with the gardens and maybe a fun fact or something.
Okay, I'm sorry for being a little late to the meeting. I'm having computer troubles all day today. So my name is Zach Donahue. I'm a community liaison for the Office of Leadership and Community Engagement. I oversee the Living Wall in downtown Statesboro, and I'm also working with the After School Garden Program. My role in the After School Garden Program is, for one, a teacher for each week for the classes, but I'm also assigned to gather volunteers together to help out with that role and promote the After School Garden Program as much as possible. I am majoring in biology. I'm also on the pre-vet track here at Georgia Southern. And a fun fact about me, I can play guitar. So.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, Zach is our CL, and he is going to be working on getting us some volunteers. Some of our schools have a bigger group, and especially when it comes time to plant in the gardens, it gets a little overwhelming if you are the only person there. So we're really going to push to have some extra volunteers this semester so that you won't feel like you're being overwhelmed with dealing with, 15 kids and trying to plant all kinds of different seeds at one time. So we're looking forward to having some volunteers. I'm going to try to set up my share screen here. Let's see. A window. Let's see. All right. Maybe I can get to where I need to be. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, perfect. I cannot see you guys. Oh, oh no, back. Okay. So just a little welcome again. Thank you so much. Here's an overview of your day and your school. So I'll start out on Mondays at Maddie Lively. And last semester I went and taught on Tuesdays. And I feel like it was probably more beneficial for me to teach on Mondays this semester so that if something with the lesson plan didn't go right, if I need to make changes to anything, that can be done on Monday, and I can kind of give you guys some insight on just some strategies to make sure everything runs well. Zach is going to be on Tuesdays at Mill Creek, and the numbers beside it are how many kids you have. Of course, this fluctuates from week to week depending on who's at school, who's not at school. Maybe that one day of the week they don't come to the after school program, whatever it is, those numbers can fluctuate, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea. Wednesday, Gabrielle will be at Sally. That's our biggest group. So we definitely want to get some volunteers for Wednesday. And then Thursday, Danielle, you'll be at Julia P. And then Friday, Maggie, you'll be at Langston. So real fast, I just wanted to tell you guys kind of when you get there where you'll go. So Zach, you'll put Mill Creek in your GPS and it'll take you up to the school.
Okay.
And you're going to pull in to the lot that the buses do not go in. So you'll go in the opposite lot. It's the smallest lot in front of the school. It's on the left side. So you'll pull in there, and every school outside of the door has a poster that says after school garden program. So if you get lost, just look for that little sign, and that should be right where you go. So you'll go in those double doors to the lunchroom, and you'll sign in there. Gabrielle?
Does it say, sorry, real quick, does it say after school garden program or just after school program?
After school program, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want you guys to look for the garden word and it's not there, and then you're like, it didn't say after school garden program. So
Right.
I guess also give them an FYI that the garden program is part of the after school
Yes.
program, right? So it's a program within a program, basically.
Yes. So Zach, when you go in, you'll sign in and you'll just introduce yourself. I'm the new garden program teacher, and then they will bring you your kids. And Zach, with your school, you have the school I had last semester. Just to give you a little insight on that, some of our beds were torn up during construction at that school, so you only have 2 beds there. So it's a much smaller garden than our other schools have. So you'll have more kids than I had last semester with a smaller area, but it is more manageable. We just hope that those beds will be replaced soon, but we don't know about that yet. But the first week, just another note, I'll be going with you guys just to make sure that you know where to go, you know how to get to your gardens, and just to kind of help you get the lay of the land that first week. So Danielle, Julia P., you'll go right in the front door. There's nowhere special to go in there. It's just the front door, and you'll tell them you're the garden teacher, and they'll let you go outside to the gardens. Julia P. has always been one of our schools that produces really well after we plant, so that's always fun. And then Maggie, at Langston, you'll also go in the lunchroom. It's on the left side of the building as well, and it will have a sign that says after school program. And same thing, you'll go in, sign in, and they will bring your kids to you, or y'all can all go outside. It just depends on kind of what the lesson is for the week.
Langston's, I'm just going to note this for Maggie. Langston's a little tough to find out where exactly you're getting into the door. So the middle school and the elementary school they're connected, and so you kind of like you're in front of the building, and you don't sometimes can tell what building you're in front of. But if you're coming from campus, it's going to be the building that's the second building, not the first.
Mm-hmm.
So, but obviously, like, call Madison if you have an issue, but Langston is definitely the one that is more confusing to at least like get to figure out what door you're going to. And then also for Mill Creek and Zach, it's the parking lot that's furthest away from the intersection. And so those will be kind of two maybe landmarks to help you figure out which parking lots you need to go to. And so it's the same thing, Maggie, for Langston. It's the parking lot that's furthest away from the main intersection that you're going to be turning off of, which is like, I don't know, 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet away from the school. So just a kind of random FYI about actually physically getting to the school.
Right. And that first week, like I said, I will be attending with you guys just to kind of help you. So I'll email you guys my phone number. So that way, if you get lost on the way there or you're there and you have no idea where to go, you can call me because I'll be there to meet you and kind of walk you through it if you're lost. So that's just a quick overview. So here's our schedule. Tomorrow is our work day to prepare the beds. It says 2 p.m., but that is kind of the time that schools are getting out now. They've changed their schedules because of COVID. So I'm going to aim for more of 1 o'clock. So if you guys can join me at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, that'll be fine. But we're just going to go to each school, pull the weeds and make sure the irrigation is working, and I can show you about your gardens if there's anything special, like Mill Creek, for example. Zach doesn't have any irrigation because when they were doing that construction, they tore all of our irrigation up as well. And then at Langston, there's some beds we don't use, so I'll show you that when we get there. But that is a work day for us to prepare the beds and make sure everything is ready for when we start on February the 8th. So that first week, we will do Welcome to the Garden, and then there will be a winter break. So that's when Bullitt County is out of school, so there won't be any kids there, so we won't go. And then we'll do types of seeds, spring versus fall planting, types of soil, plant parts, plant pollination, leafy greens, and then April 5th is wrong, sorry. I'll fix that and I'll send you guys the new schedule. April 5th, we will be going to the garden club. Nope. I'll have to look at that. Just kidding.
I think, no, that's right. What I have on my schedule.
Right. Okay. Just kidding. April 5th, we won't be going because that's Bullitt County spring break. And of course, there'll be no kids there, so we won't need to go. And then we'll do a lesson about canned, fresh, and frozen vegetables. And then we'll do the harvest celebration. And that information will come later once I get more details from Joy about, COVID issues and if we can do our normal thing. So this is a little bit of what we expect from you. Of course, we expect you there each week. So if you're volunteering on Monday, for example, which I am, I will be there every Monday at my school at 3:30, setting my stuff up ready to go. Arrive between 3:30 and 4 so that you have time to get ready, especially if you have to walk out to your gardens and prepare things. So we expect you to be there every week. If something comes up, I need to know in advance. Don't text me 5 minutes before and be like, oh, hey, sorry, I can't go today. Because that is really unprofessional and that puts us in a bind to try and find someone to fill for that day. But other than that, we expect enthusiasm. Of course, we're going to be working with kids and they want you to be excited. And when you're excited, they're excited. So be sure that you're portraying that to them and that you're trying to make the experience as good as possible for them. Also, along with working with kids, you got to have patience. So there will be instances where you're really frustrated with all that's going on, especially those weeks where we will be planting. There's a lot to do, a lot of kids, a lot of directions, a lot of supplies. So that will be overwhelming, but have that patience and feel free to ask for help. Like if you get there that first week and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I can do this by myself, let me know and we'll be sure to get a volunteer set for your day so that someone can join you each week. So don't be scared to ask for help because that's what we're here for and to make sure that you feel supported as well. And then of course, celebrate the kids' hard work each week. Their duties are to pull the weeds. When they pull the weeds, tell them they did a great job. You're proud of their hard work and doing that, is going to help their plants grow. So just celebrating the little things kind of help with that big picture. And then, of course, at the end, we'll do our harvest celebration. where we harvest all of our crops from the gardens, and we do a little recipe, and the kids get to take home everything that is harvested, and those details will be given at a later date once we confirm if that can be done as normal. Some behavior management. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to this. I can't see who all is on the screen anymore. I can't see you guys.
Yeah, Dr. Pickens is here, so.
Perfect. Well, then I will exit and let her hop on from there. So we have Dr. Pickens with us. She is going to be talking to us about, like I said earlier, working with students with disabilities, because we do have a variety of students in our program. So I think it's really valuable information for, there we go, now I can stop presenting, for her to hop on and give us some information about what you guys can do in the program, but also, you know, some of your education. Some of you will be dealing with kids in the future. It's just very beneficial information in general. And then she, I think, is going to talk a little bit about Eagle Academy, and if you are interested in working with kids more outside the garden program, how you can get involved with that. So I will let her take over whenever she's ready.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was enjoying listening to kind of what you guys were doing, what the plan was.
Yeah, no worries.
I was appreciating it all. So, you know. But hi everyone. I'm a professor by nature, so I'm loving my PowerPoint. So I'm gonna pull up a PowerPoint. But hopefully I'm gonna go through quick, and I just wanted to, you know, give you guys a little bit of information about working with individuals with disabilities. But mostly I really wanted you guys to talk and find out a little bit more about your students and kind of some strategies that you might be able to use with them. So are you guys able to see my screen now? Not sure if it's letting me share.
Not quite.
Not yet.
It took the Dr. Leahy, the person that had chatted with us before, a couple tries too. And with Madison, I think.
Yeah, it took me a couple tries too.
Well, I actually might present without a PowerPoint then, because, and here's one of the first things about working with students and, you know, students with disabilities, you gotta be flexible. So you're gonna roll with it, and you're gonna, you know, make sure that it's accessible for everyone. So my name is Dr. Julie Pickens. I am the director of Eagle Academy at Georgia Southern. And, you know, I spend most of my time, and my passion is really working with individuals with disabilities, especially older students. But, you know, I do have a background in working with students of all ages with disabilities. So I just am really excited that Madison invited me to come talk to you guys tonight, and happy to answer any questions that you all have. So as I mentioned, I am the director of Eagle Academy, which is the inclusive post-secondary program here at Georgia Southern. So what that means is that it's a program for students with disabilities that wouldn't typically have a path to college. So, you know, these are students that, you know, probably didn't take the ACT, the SAT, and they, you know, might have taken the couple years or the 4 years of a foreign language to be able to come in. But they are Georgia Southern students. They pay full tuition and fees. They live on campus, and they come in and they really focus on a area that they want to pursue to make sure that they have success in employment and are able to live an enviable life, and, you know, that things go well. And we are located within the College of Education, but, you know, we have students from across campus come and support our students as peer mentors, and sharing, and our peer mentors or academic mentors or social mentors. So that's my shameless plug for you to, you know, check out Eagle Academy if you're if this is an area, which it seems like it might be, that you guys are interested in. But, you know, there's actually programs that like this all across the country in every state other than West Virginia. And so, you know, no matter where you go in the country, you know, you're going to find programs like this, and that provide an opportunity for students to gain access to college, and that really provide equitable access for all students, which, you know, is something that we want for every student, and that you're going to want for your students. So just kind of going off of that, one of the things that you want to make sure when you're working with students all students, but especially students with disabilities, is that, you know, you're providing equal access for them, and that you're providing opportunities for them to find success. And one of the ways that you can do that is through a process called universal design, or specifically universal design for learning. Okay, and what that means is really that it's equal access for everyone, and that it's specifically designed so that everyone has access to it. So, you know, if you think about, you know, anyone, and sorry, I have a little one, so, you know, I'm focused on toileting and pottying and that kind of stuff right now. But if you think about it, anyone can use a handicapped bathroom or an accessible bathroom. Not everyone can use a smaller bathroom. Everyone can use a curb cut to get up onto a sidewalk. Not everyone can get onto a sidewalk without a curb cut. Everyone can, you know, access some of these things, but because they're designed to be bigger and allow people to access them. But if they're not designed to allow people to access them, then they can't access them, and, you know, they're excluded. And so that is how ideally everything should be designed, in my opinion, is that everyone should be designed for equal access. And so everyone should be able to get to what they need to do. So when you're teaching, when you're working with students, one of the ways, or some of the ways you can make sure that it's equitable and that you're providing universal design is offering multiple ways for the students to access what you're doing. So you are doing it multiple ways of presenting things. So you're presenting things both verbally, you're showing pictures, you're using, you know, not diagrams, but illustrations of how to do it. So it's an expression, it's in representation, and it's in the different types of equipment that you use. So you just want to make sure that you're really using flexibility in the way that things can be used, and that they can be used differently, and that everyone can use them equally as you're kind of going through it. And you also want to make sure that you are not doing things that require extensive, you know, physical effort, because, you know, that may prevent some people from being able to participate as fully. You want to make sure that they're simple and that they're intuitive. You don't want things to be extremely complicated. So when you're providing supports for the students, you know, you want to create creative learning opportunities for them. So some of the ways that you can do that are by doing things one step at a time, and making sure that what you're saying is clear and that it's sequenced, you know, so that everyone can kind of follow along and participate. And then you want to make sure that you're reflecting back and summarizing what you're doing to make sure that students can really access it and think about what they're doing. And you want to make sure that you're taking into account different students' learning styles. You know, some students learn by hearing it, some students learn by doing it, some students learn by seeing it done by someone else. So you want to make sure, again, that there's multiple ways that you're offering for the student to learn how to do it and to represent it. And so you want to vary the methods that you teach it, and the various ways that you do it for the students to make sure that everyone's accessing it. One of the best ways for students to learn, no matter what, is to learn from a peer. So, you know, take that opportunity to have a peer come in and engage and do that. Going back to Eagle Academy, that's why we use peer mentors so much, is because, you know, having a friend or someone that's your same age help you do it and help you engage and help you to do something is a lot better than having, you know, a 35-year-old woman tell you how to do it. They don't want to listen to me. They want to listen to their peers. So, you know, having a peer help them do it may, you know, be a great way to do it. And just make sure that you're checking for understanding as you're going along, and that, you know, everyone's having a good time. So when you're working with students, but in students with disabilities specifically, you want to make sure that you're holding them to high standards, but that you're also meeting them where they're at, and that you're prepared to adapt what's going on. And not expecting that everyone's going to do everything at the same level and at the same time, and that even that the student, one student from day to day, is going to do it at the same level, at the same pace, and, you know, do those types of things. So you want to make sure that you are holding high standards, that you're expecting good things from them, but that, you know, you're meeting them where they are and adapting when needed. It's also good to kind of, as you get to know your students more, find out a little bit more about how they participate best and how they self-regulate. So something that you might have see with students with disabilities is they might do what is called stimming. And that is frequently associated with students with disabilities, but it's something that we all do. So I'm a hair twirler. I switch around my wedding ring. I'm a pen tapper at times. And these are all things that everyone does to self-regulate. Well, students do these things too, whether, you know, they have disabilities or not. They might, you know, chew on their hair. They might flap their arms. They may, you know, hug themselves. And these are just things that they're doing to self-regulate. And so, you know, kind of knowing that these are things that the students are doing and that they're helping them, you know, they're not things that you should stop. They're not things that, you know, you should call out and say, you know, Bobby, stop pushing on your leg. You know, don't do that. We're doing focusing in. You know, as you get to know the students more, you'll know kind of what these things mean, and you can kind of help them to know when they're kind of becoming overwhelmed or when they need a break. So it's a good thing to kind of keep in mind, and just also to keep in mind that it's something that everyone does. So another thing that is important is, you know, these are younger students, but you still want to make sure that you are using normal tones, normal speech tones, words and patterns and things like that. You know, it's very easy to slip into the sweeties or have your voice go up an octave when, you know, you're helping them, but you want to make sure that you are using the same tones and same speech patterns with all of the students, and that, you know, again, holding them to a high standard and treating them appropriately. And, you know, as I was coming in, I heard that Madison talking a little bit about, you know, acknowledging their success. And so if they pull weeds, you know, congratulate them on that and tell them what an awesome job they're doing. And look at how great these plants are doing. And you're doing this. This is awesome. So absolutely, you want to make sure that you're acknowledging their successes and celebrating their successes. But you don't want to do it excessively. You know, if they pull like one weed, like, oh, that's so awesome. I can't believe you did that. Like, nope, you did it, and now there's 5 more for you to do, and you're doing a great job, and look how great it works, and keep working because you're doing fantastic. And kind of going along with that, you know, just making sure that, you know, you are promoting acceptance with the students, and that, you know, you're championing the great work that they're doing, and, you know, that everyone's doing a great job and contributing. You know, don't feed into pity, don't feed into, you know, pure culture, things like that. Just, they're doing a great job, acknowledge that. Students with and without disabilities may take a little bit longer to respond, or they may respond in a different way. You know, they may have a little bit of a speech impediment that may take them a little longer to respond, or they may, you know, prefer to respond non-verbally versus verbally. Just, you know, note those and know that students may respond differently and may work differently with you. And as you get to know the students better, you will know how they work best. So that just holding them, you know, in a caring way and, you know, respectful way is very important, and helping them to be their own best self-advocate, you know, and ask for help, and, you know, really do the great work that they can do and show the great potential that they all have. And then still just, you know, make sure that you're setting healthy boundaries and maintaining healthy boundaries with the student. I'm sure that they've talked significantly about boundaries, and, you know, working with little kids, that can sometimes be hard, but just make sure that you're setting good boundaries and, you know, honoring the students for who they are. There will be some challenges working with students, you know, but there are definitely some problem solving tips that you can use to work with students and, you know, find success. So one of the first things is, you know, when you're working with a student and there might be multiple problems, select one problem at a time, you know, and focus in on that and define that problem. So what is actually going on? What is the thing that they're finding challenging or that you're finding challenging? And then develop objectives. So how are we going to work through this? Because we're going to work through this together, and we can get through this. And then maybe highlight what happens if you don't resolve the problem. What would it look like? And is this something that they want to change or that you want to change to make it better? And talk about what some of the rewards and benefits might be for solving the problems as you're kind of working through, and possibly alternate solutions if the first one doesn't work or if that is decided that that's not what they want to do. But you want to make sure that you're not solving the problem for the student, that you're empowering them to work through it. You're helping them and you'll support them, but there's great benefits from having the students support and solve the problem on their own. And you're there to kind of help provide a caring environment, and to clarify, what is going on, and encourage them to try the methods themselves and, make an action plan. So as you're working with students, you just want to make sure that there's some things that you remain conscious of. So everyone comes in to every interaction with an implicit bias. It's just depending on, what your life experience is, who you've interacted with, what type of things have occurred. Everyone has an implicit bias. And frequently individuals with disabilities are pitied or thought that they can't necessarily do things as well as other people. And that's not true. I will disclose I'm a person with a disability, and I think I've gotten as far as I have because of my disability, because of, some of the experiences that I've had. People with disabilities want equal access. They don't want special treatment. They want, things to be designed so that everyone can participate and everyone can have access. When you're working with people with disabilities, person first language is usually the go-to. And what person first language means is you put the person before the disability. So, you say person with autism, not autistic person. Person who uses a wheelchair, not wheelchair-bound person. And that is usually the default, that, is to put the person before the disability. But like any identity, it's what you use unless someone tells you otherwise. So there's a big move within the disability community and the autistic community specifically to say autistic. Don't say person with autism. So if a student tells you that they prefer to be called disabled, a disabled person, or they prefer to be called autistic versus person with autism, person with a disability, you honor that and you would use that with them. But when in doubt, default to person first language. And just remember that, these individuals may process information differently. They may engage with you differently. They may prefer to engage, using some nonverbals, or they may take a while to respond. As you get to know the students better, you'll have a better idea of, exactly how they access information and exactly how they engage. So you can, work with that. And I know that it can be worrisome at times, or, a little bit caution-inducing to say, I'm not sure. I've never worked with people with disabilities. I can assure you, you've worked with people with disabilities. You know people with disabilities. The majority of disabilities are actually not visible disabilities. So, visible versus invisible disabilities, the percentage that are invisible is two times as many as those that are visible. So, you have worked with people with disabilities, people with disabilities. And also know that disability can be flexible. Where you may have one disability, you may not have it in another situation. For instance, if an individual may identify as having a disability if they need to read all material, but if their disability is specifically related to, reading, they don't have a disability when they're playing basketball. They don't have a disability if you give them a book on tape, they don't have a disability. I'm not going to bore you with the different models of disability, but just know, disability is fluid, and people with disabilities, and that, membership in having a disability is fluid, and that, different people have different views about disability and even having their own disability. As I mentioned, I'm pretty loud and proud that I have a disability. Not everyone is that way. or has that view, you know, and some of that plays into the way that people with disabilities are sometimes viewed. So if a student does tell you that they have a disability, you know, treat it as private information. That is something that they should tell other people and they disclose. It's not something that you would disclose or share with other people. So just, you know, when you're working with students, make sure that you're using what is called motivational interviewing techniques. So make sure that you're asking open-ended questions, you know, to really draw out the student and, you know, get them involved. So try to avoid yes or no questions whenever possible and, you know, deepen the conversation. Do make sure that you're using affirmations and that, you know, you're pointing out the student's strengths and their efforts and the achievements, and that you're using those to encourage the student, you know, when appropriate. And make sure that you're also reflecting on what you're doing and what they're doing and what benefits everyone is reaping because of that. You know, everyone loves to hear what they're doing, that what they're doing is contributing, and, you know, that they're understood and that what they're doing is making a difference. So make sure that, you know, you're reflecting back and that you're also summarizing what the students are doing so they can kind of know what's going on, and if you are going astray or they're going astray, they can kind of know ahead of time and, you know, talk about where their strengths are and how they're doing a great job. So again, my name is Julie Pickens. I'm the director of Eagle Academy. You can reach me at Eagle Academy at Georgia Southern. And I just wanted to plug that in there real quick, but now I would love to answer any questions that you guys have.
Just for a note, you guys, for my teachers, a lot of the things that Dr. Pickens said, you'll see throughout the lesson plans. So from my background of having a degree in education, I've kind of tied a good bit of that stuff into the lesson plans, making sure that we have visuals and that we are working with students that have different learning styles. A lot of those open-ended questions rather than is a plant this or that, it's asking questions that, you know, get them thinking, okay, this is what she said, how does it apply? So as we go through the lessons each week, you will see a lot of what she was talking about implemented into the lesson plans. So just be mindful of that as you're looking over the lesson plans and you prepare to work with the students, because everything that she said will play a role in what you do and how you present the lessons to the students. So I just wanted to note that to you guys real fast before any questions came through. But feel free to ask questions. I'm sure between everybody we can come up with an answer, and I'm sure Dr. Pickens would love to have you guys involved in Eagle Academy if you are looking for another opportunity. I know a lot of student orgs require a certain amount of volunteer hours, so I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity for that. And I can give you her contact information if you are interested. But I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any.
I do actually have a question. So if I do end up with a student who has a disability, and I notice that they're getting frustrated, what should I do to kind of get them back on track or calm them down and kind of get everything back together?
Before you answer, Dr. Pickens, I'm just going to make an overall note that if there are students that have, and I don't know the proper language used, but have a pretty high disability, there will be an after-school program person that is with that person. So if it is, I mean, we've just seen some after-school staff, they are with one child and that's their role. So you probably won't get a student that is, you know, has a pretty large disability. Again, like Dr. Pickens, tell me how to use the wording correctly. But generally there will be somebody that is there that they're just not going to be kind of added to your group because they do need more one-on-one attention. So none of you will be alone in the space of trying to manage that student. There will be somebody from the after-school program there that usually is managing that student, but we want to, obviously, they're there and they're still part of the group. So there will be somebody to help with that behavior, but I still think it's a great question, and Dr. Pickens also please answer, but just an FYI that there will be, if that does happen, there will be somebody that is with a particular student.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and I appreciate her answer with that. If a student has a high support need, then there will be someone that's working with them, to help support them. But at the same time, as you get to know the students, you'll kind of get to know some of their support needs and how to best work with them and what works for them. I would always recommend when you're working with the student, kind of let them take the lead of, saying, hey, I need a break, can I take 5 minutes? Can I do that? Can I step away? So I would ask that, but if you specifically notice like, oh, Bob's stress level is getting high, he's doing something that, makes me think that he may need a break, I would just offer, hey, do you need a break? Or, would you like to go do something? If they're getting very frustrated specifically with, trying to dig out roots that like, they're not coming. And, those feeder roots, they're not coming. Say, oh, you're doing a really great job there. But where I would really like you to help and where you could really be of the best help, Bob, would be over here with watering this plant. So why don't we water that plant for a little bit? Because that's what would really help me. So you're really empowering the student and saying, yeah, it's okay to take a break. And you're really helping me if you go do this. And they're, because almost every student I've ever met, even if they didn't seem like it at first, they want to help, they want to engage, they want to do something. So I would say, if you notice it, try to, check in with the student and, even possibly help them to kind of de-escalate themselves. Whether that's having them do something else or just saying, hey, why don't you take a breather? You're working really hard. You can take 2 minutes and then come on back and this might be easier or something like that. That'd be my recommendation, but I'm open to definitely whatever other people think would be great too.
Sorry, go ahead, Kimmy.
I was just going to say, I have just an FYI about some of the gardens, which Madison is obviously more in the gardens than I am at this point. But a couple of years ago, we had a lot of high support needs students, but they would, so my GA at the time and her name was Caitlin, we planted a lot of herbs. And we planted those herbs because we wanted to include more senses. And so people or students with disabilities could engage with the plants a little bit more. So some of you guys will see you have sage, which obviously that's a little more fuzzy, or you'll see basil, which is more like a plain leaf. But they have, we're trying to include the sense and the touch and the smell, or the smell and touch and taste, versus some of, like a carrot is growing for more or less 2 or 3 months, and you don't see it until you pull it out of the ground. And so we did try, and most of your schools should have an herb. And if they don't, we can put another one in there. But we did try, that was one of the things that we also tried to do to help, aid that, some students that have a higher need than others. So just an FYI about that too for the teachers.
I want to hop on real quick. I will note last semester when I was filling in for some teachers, I did work with a student that was of higher need of support. So there was an after-school teacher, like Cami mentioned, that was specifically designated to that one student. And my experience with that is very similar to what Dr. Pickens was speaking on, of just making sure that they're comfortable and they're receiving everything they need in order not to become frustrated or to be able to learn and interact with others well. That specific student for me, he wanted the individual attention of me saying, oh, what do you think about this? Or can you show me this? He wanted me to refer back to him after every question and hear his answer and look at his project and see what he did. So the way I kind of did that was, a lot of times I would let the students do like a group talk where they can share their thoughts with each other. Because if I didn't necessarily call on him when I asked a question, he would get frustrated. So like you were asking Danielle, the way I handled that was I would ask a question, I would let the group discuss, and while the group was discussing, I would, walk over to him and be like, well, what do you think about this? So that he still got that one-on-one time that he needed and that he wanted without becoming frustrated. So a lot of what Dr. Pickens is sharing with us is really applicable to the students that you'll be interacting with. So just keep that in mind as the weeks progress. But any other questions, Cami?
I was just going to say one more note. It's obviously if something comes up and Madison, and Dr. Pickens have been in correspondence, that we don't know how to handle, and maybe even sometimes the after school staff don't know how to handle. I don't know. And I was actually thinking when you were talking, Dr. Pickens, that it would be great for you to talk to Joy, Joy Deal. Do you work with her at all?
Don't, but I would love to talk to her more. The name sounds familiar to me, but yeah, absolutely love to talk.
She works for the Parks and Rec department in Statesboro, but for Bullock County, and she runs the after school program. So, and I don't know how those students are chosen to work with the higher needs students, but I think maybe Madison, you can make that connection or reach out to Joy and say, hey, I think that Dr. Pickens would be a great resource for you, because I know that you've had some, we've seen some students that are of higher need, and that Dr. Pickens, you could help educate them a little bit more. Because I know I've seen too, some of those, it's so easy to just go status quo and just get like frustrated. And I've seen that happen and it's not like abusive frustrated, but it's just, like I said, it's just so easy to just get to a point where I think you called it like the cure something, like having this mindset that you have cure culture, that like you have to cure them versus meeting them where they're at. And so I've definitely seen some of those students just be like, you need to act like them, stop it. And it's like, that's not how these interactions should work. So I think that would be a really great resource. So Madison, could you reach out to Joy and maybe see if you can connect them? Because I think that would be really good too.
For sure, I totally agree. I think that the process of how they hire their after school people doesn't involve any sort of, because the training that I went through last semester didn't have any sort of anything really besides, you're going to be an after school person, and that's pretty much it. You're going to be dealing with kids. So I think it would be super beneficial for them. And I will definitely get you in touch with her, Dr. Pickens, so that hopefully they can get the resources they need as well. Because, they're working with the same kids we are. So I feel like they need this information as well.
I would love that.
But yes, any other questions before we let Dr. Pickens go, or does everybody feel pretty confident? We do have a few more things like behavior management and stuff to discuss, so I'm sure questions will continue to come up, but specifically for Dr. Pickens, do we have anything else? If not, that's okay, just pop on real fast. Nope. Okay, well, thank you again so much for joining us. I know from my perspective, it's always good to have that refresher, even though, it's something that's a part of my life being in education. But I think it's just good general knowledge too. So we really appreciate you hopping on with us and taking this time to inform us about how we can be better and how we can teach others to be better as well.
Absolutely. And really students, I'm really open to anyone coming and talking to me. You can shoot me an email, like I said, at Eagle Academy at Georgia Southern, or, if you're in the College of Education, I'm in, top of the third floor, end of the hallway, 3156. So you can stop by and just say, hey, Dr. Pickens, I'm Maggie. You came and talked to me last week. I got a question, and I would love that. So again, thank you so much for taking the time, and let me know if there's any way I can support you guys.
Of course.
Good night, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I feel like that was amazing information for us to have, especially with the things that we have left to discuss in our time. So with that, I will go ahead and start sharing my screen again. Let's see. Okay, can you guys see it? Oh, no, wrong button. Present. Did that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we will go back to where we were. So for behavior management, a lot of this goes along with some of what Dr. Pickens said. Get to know your students. Make sure that you know their names, you know what kind of activities they like, so that you can share that information with me as well, because you know we want to write lesson plans that our students are going to be engaged with. So maybe you have a group of students that absolutely hate crafts. That's okay. Some of our lesson plans have crafts, but we can make that change if needed. So get to know your students, create those relationships. Especially, you know, if you do have students with disabilities, it's important, like Dr. Pickens said, to know what you can do to help them. Create an attention grabber. So this is something that kind of fell short last semester that I noticed with our teachers, and that I want to highly encourage you guys to use. So like 1, 2, 3, eyes on me when you need to get everybody's attention. Just so you don't have to be like, woo, students, hey, look at me. Like just a simple thing to get their mindset and know that, okay, what she's about to say or what he's about to say is important. So
another one, Madison, that I used to use that I really liked is just clap once if you can hear my voice, clap twice if you can hear my voice. That one works really well too. You just have to find, and maybe Madison would be good to give them a couple other options. Obviously, you don't have to do it right now, but kind of just finding what connects with you. And that one for me, like all the other ones, I was like, yep, those aren't mine. This is mine. So you really have to find it. So Madison, might be good for you to give them a couple, not it, like I said, not right now, but like just a couple other options to figure it out.
For my school, I will say I asked my students what they wanted their attention grabber to be, because a lot of times their teachers use them, or their school uses them. So I said, hey, do you guys know what an attention grabber is? And the kids are like, oh yeah, this is what they do. And they showed me how they do it at school. So that's what they wanted to use. And they already knew what to do. They were prepared. So maybe if you don't have an idea, of course, I'll give you examples as well, but get that from them too, because that's going to create more of a connection for them and let them know that, oh my gosh, I had an opportunity to help my teacher pick out an attention grabber. So that's just an idea as well. And when you create that attention grabber, use it. Be consistent with it. Anytime you need their attention, use it, and then wait for them to get focused. So if you're using your attention grabber and all your kids are still talking, you're still doing whatever it is, use it again and use it again until they're focused, so that they know, okay, they're about to say something important. We need to chill out. It's their turn to talk or their turn to do this. So just give them some time and wait for them to get focused, because their little brains are all over the place all the time. So they're not automatically going to turn around and be ready. So just be mindful of that. Set your expectations on the first day. So as you'll see in the lesson plan that I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes, there are behavior expectations that you're going to read out to the students. I have it set up in every lesson plan for every week so that you can review them each time you go. But it's super important on that first day to say, hey, my name's Madison. This is the garden club. This is what we're going to be doing. Here are my expectations for you. So that they know, okay, when she comes, this is what we do. And if anything ever does come up where you have to discipline, which I really didn't have that issue last semester. A lot of times the after school program staff step in and maybe pull a kid to the side. Always try to discipline in private if it is an individual instance. So say Sally is calling people names. Don't scream out, hey, Sally, stop being rude and calling people names. Like, just say, hey, Sally, can you come here for just a second? And then say, all right, maybe let's try not to use those names and be friendlier, that kind of thing. So don't discipline in front of the whole group unless it is a whole group issue. And with that, it's always important to treat your students with respect at all times. Being in education, I know a lot of times you get frustrated and you're overwhelmed and you're just tired and you've had a long day. And I totally feel that as a college student as well. but if you respect them, they respect you. So be sure you set that in place every day that you're there, the whole time that you're there. And a lot of times on number 7, this one makes me laugh because I'll say, all right, guys, it's time to pick weeds. And the kids will be like, oh, why do we have to pick weeds? And this is an awesome teaching experience where you can come in and say, well, remember what we learned? Our plants have to have X, Y, and Z to be able to live. And one of those things is space. And if there's weeds in our bed, then our plants don't have a lot of space. So that's why we have to pick weeds. So you have to be sure to explain why you're doing things and why it's important to do them, or else they're not really going to make those connections because there is reasoning behind everything that goes on. And then we've already discussed this a little bit, give them choices, and that's something that plays into what Dr. Pickens says. If you have a student that is frustrated because we're not planting this or that, and they're pitching a fit, say, okay, well, I'm going to give you these few seeds. You can go to this corner and plant those if you want to. Or maybe they don't want to pull weeds first. They want to pull weeds last after we do the lesson. Like, give them choices. Let them feel like they're in charge of their learning, but still be sure to do everything that's on the lesson. You can do it out of order as long as everything pretty much gets done, especially if it's an instance where students really need that change of maybe going to the gardens last rather than going to the gardens first. And like we've talked about several times now, reinforcing positive behavior. So when they're listening well, when they're, doing a craft and everybody just say, wow, everybody's doing a great job. That just kind of sets a good positive mood and the kids feed off of that. And last but not least, your students are always watching. So with this, I would like to say that we highly encourage you to be completely involved while you're there. So don't use your cell phone, don't call people, don't text people. Focus on your students and what they're doing and how you can help them in their learning process. Unless, I send the iPad with you guys and you watch a video, that would be an instance where you can have an electronic device. But other than that, avoid pulling out your phone unless you're taking pictures, because we do encourage you to take pictures of the kids so that we can use them on our end for marketing purposes. But your kids are watching. So if you're texting your mom or your dad or your roommate or whoever, they're going to see that you're not interested in what you're teaching, so they're not going to be interested either. So those are just some important things. And this list and some more details on it is in your binder that you'll get. So if you ever want to review it, it'll be in there for your reference as well. But a lot of it is what we just talked about with Dr. Pickens. So I'm not going to talk too much on that because I feel like you guys have a good idea. So for the week you volunteer, like I said, the program runs from 4 to 4:45. Please arrive between 3:30, 3:45, 4, any of that time, depending on, if you have a class, if you need to travel from somewhere, so that you can help prepare. I don't know why it says programs teacher. That was a typo on my part because you guys are program teachers. Because you will have materials that you take each week. So it's important that you make sure you have it all there already and you're set to go. Attire, we ask that our volunteers wear t-shirts or sleeve shirts, so no tank tops, and shorts, capris, or pants to the knee or below. You can wear like GSU t-shirts, anything that isn't explicit. Like I always say, like if you wouldn't wear it around your grandma, don't wear it to school. That's what my supervisors in the College of Ed always told me. So just be mindful of that. They're kids. Don't wear anything crazy. And then this is something new that I want to try to do this semester. We really didn't keep up with this a lot last semester, but I want to be more mindful of how many students we're reaching each week. So we're going to try to take attendance, not necessarily names, but the amount of students that are present each week. So in your binder, you'll have a paper to keep up with that on. And then on that paper, you'll have like a column that says student and then a column that says guest, because like I said earlier, your number of kids can vary from week to week. So that's something that I want to try just so we can see overall how many students we're reaching from semester to semester. So that first day when you're there, you will take attendance, and as you're taking attendance, you're going to give out tree cookies as name tags, and that'll be in the supplies for you. So what you'll do is like a little necklace. You'll take the tree cookie and you'll write their name on it, and you'll hand it to them, and they'll wear that all day. So that kind of helps you get to know them and make that connection with them. And then before you leave, take them up. You'll have a Ziploc bag to put them in, and you'll just put them in the bag, and then you'll bring them back the next week. And of course, you'll have extras for the guests that are there, the students that might just be there for that day because their parents need them to be there that day or whatever. So that'll be kind of an every week thing that you do. So what we did last semester, we met on Mondays to review the lessons for the week to ensure that you're fully prepared to go and teach and that you understand all the material and you understand just the layout of the lesson plan. And this is also where you pick up supplies. So Zach would pick up, no, that wouldn't work. I would take the supplies on Monday and then we pass them along throughout the week. So that's something that we will discuss before we end our meeting today on Monday, like a Monday scheduled time. Last semester we met in person. We really didn't necessarily have to meet in person for all the lesson plans. Some of them are very straightforward, but there are some that I like for you to come so that I can actually like teach them to you, especially the ones that have a lot of visuals and a lot of supplies so that you know exactly what to do with everything that you're given. So before we hop off of our call tonight, I would like to just hear everybody's kind of preference on Monday meeting. And like I said, from week to week, it'll differ whether we're in person or virtual, depending on what the lesson is like. And then for the supplies, how it works is you will pick those up from our office. So we are in the Office of Leadership and Community Engagement, and that is located inside the Russell Union, and it is diagonal to Chick-fil-A. So Chick-fil-A is in one corner, we're in the other. So you'll come there every day of the week that you teach. So Zach, for instance, you'll come on Tuesdays, you'll pick up your supplies, you'll go teach your kids, whatever, and then you'll keep your supplies that night. The next day, you have to bring them back by lunchtime to the office so that I can ensure everything is in the bin, everything is ready to go for the next teacher. And then Wednesday's teacher, Gabrielle, will come pick it up. She'll do the same thing. The next day, she'll bring it back before lunch, and then so forth. So that way, that's how we're going to pass along our supplies. Last semester, it was a mess the way we did it. So this is how we're going to plan to do it this semester so that it will be more structured and that I can go through the bins every day of the week to make sure that no supplies are missing and that we have a correct amount of things for each school. So you will have to come into the office the day you teach to grab your supplies, and then you'll have to bring them back the next day. And just a note, the first week, which starts February the 8th, I just wanted to chat real fast about two different things that you'll be doing. You'll be giving a pre-test at the end of your lesson, and these will be in your bins that you pick up that week. You'll pass one out to every student there. And what I want you to do with that, I want you to read each question to the student, read each answer, give them time to answer, but don't give them the answer. Let them circle what they think is the appropriate answer. And then the reason we do this is so that we can see throughout the semester what the students learned. So the last week, you'll do a post test, and then I'll compare the data from pre to post to see how we taught and how our students learned what we taught. So that first week, you will be giving a pre-test, and you will be introducing root viewers. This is something that the kids love, and basically it's this big styrofoam like set of things that have soil in it. And that first week, you're going to plant some flowers in there, and you'll leave it at the schools. And each week, you'll check in on it, and you'll see how the roots have progressed to grow, just so that the kids can make those connections with the different parts of the plants and the life cycle of, all of that good stuff. They can make those connections, and that's just another visual for them to have and to touch and to see each week. So that will be the root viewer, and I just wanted to note those two things because those are pretty important for that first week of Garden Club. And then weekly duties, this is something you'll do every week. So the students will pull the weeds. You will take them out to the garden unless, of course, something happens and the students want to go out to the gardens later, or if it's raining, you won't go out, of course. The kids will pull the weeds. You'll let them check for bugs on the vegetables. You'll let them check for all kinds of stuff. They will let you know if something is wrong. Last semester, we had a humongous issue with ants, and the kids were like, I'm not touching these beds. There's ants in there. Okay, in an instant like that, you would contact me and say, Madison, I'm at Mill Creek, there's ants all in the beds, and I will send an ant person out to take care of that. So that's why each week you go into the gardens and you let the kids check, because they'll let you know. So if there's any sort of bugs, ants, that'll be something that you check on each week. You'll also remove the dead leaves and all that ugly looking stuff from the plants, just to make sure our beds are nice and pretty. And then, of course, make sure your plants are properly watered. Like I said, we do have an irrigation system, and I will be explaining that a little more on our work day for those of you that are joining us. It's different at each school. We have timers and all that kind of stuff. So if your plants look like they're not getting water or they're dying out of nowhere, I need to be notified so that I can go out to the schools and check on our irrigation to see if maybe a sprinkler is broken or somebody's turned our water off. Whatever it is, I need to know. So just be mindful of that each week. And of course, anything needs to be reported to me as soon as you become aware of it so we can get it fixed and our plants don't die. And so this is the lesson plan. I wanted to pull it up for you guys. Can you still see it? Yes? No?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so this is the lesson plan. I just wanted real quick, we're not going to go through the whole thing. I just wanted to show you the layout. So each week, the first page will look like this. It will have an outcome of what the students should be able to learn from the lesson. It will have an outline of each portion of the lesson. And then it will have the materials that you need for that day. And like I said earlier, when the bins come back to me in the office, this is when I will be checking to make sure you have everything you need. So every material that's listed on this paper will be in that bin. And I will be sure to make sure all of that is settled before it's your time to teach. In this instance, there's a link, and that's just for my purposes of making sure that I explain the activity well enough to you guys so that you can explain it to the students. You won't need access to that while you're at the schools. That's just for my purpose there. And then the second page will look like this. You'll start with a greeting. You'll do a name game of some sort. You'll take attendance. Then you'll set your behavior expectations. Every week, go over it with the kids so that they know. And then the guidelines for COVID, of course, are still in place. So try to stay 6 feet away. I will note that not all of your students wear masks because they are not required to, but you are required to as an after-school garden teacher. So you have to be wearing a mask, but just be mindful that some of your students may not be. So that's why we still encourage you to stay 6 feet apart from each other. And then students should not be sharing supplies from us, but I will note that sometimes after school doesn't follow that. They let them share crayons and markers and pencils and all that kind of stuff. But anything we as after school garden give them will be individually set to where there's not going to be much sharing. And if there is sharing, when the bin comes back to me, I'll be cleaning the materials before it goes to the next teacher. And then you'll have your weekly duties listed so you won't forget. We already went over that. And then it'll go into your lesson. So there'll be an introduction. There'll be a discussion with all the content you need to teach. So this is all content that you'll go through with the students. And then you'll get into your activity. So after you teach your content, there will always be some sort of follow-up activity, a game, a craft, a scavenger hunt, whatever it is, it'll be here and all the instructions will be there for you. If you have a craft, all the supplies will be there for you. Everything you need is in the lesson plan. And then at the end of every day, you'll check in on your root viewer. So week 1, you'll be introducing the root viewer, the purpose of it, and then you'll be planting. But, excuse me, after that first week, you'll be checking in on it to see how it's growing. And in some cases, you'll have to water it. So just be mindful of that, because you might have to take it to like the bathroom and water it, because I had to water mine in the bathroom last semester because I didn't have a watering can.
Okay, do we have one here? Do we have one of those reviewers here? I can pop in and grab one, and I'm still here.
Yeah, we have two, and they're out on the desks right there outside of your office. They're at the top. You can't miss them.
Okay, I'll just go grab one real quick.
Okay. So each week you'll talk about the reviewers with the kids, and basically, like I said earlier, the purpose is for them to see how a seed actually grows, and they can make that visual connection to what you're teaching them. And then you'll, at the end of every lesson, you will be doing a conclusion, and you'll ask them questions, let them answer, and you'll be sure to reinforce the material that you taught them. But that's just a quick overview, and then a lot of the notes at the bottom are just for me so that I don't forget anything. But that's just a quick overview of how the lesson plans are written. And you will see these before your day. So you'll see them on Monday when we do our teacher training each week. And normally that only lasts like a maximum of 25-30 minutes. Like, I'm not trying to take up a whole day of, explaining everything to you. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time, but I do want to make sure you feel completely prepared to go to the garden. So that is an overview, and I'll send those out to you, or you'll get them in your binders each week. Planting information when it comes time to plant. Kimmy, do you want to show those real fast?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys can see me. So you can just see that this is, a styrofoam thing. This is just a piece of plastic, more or less. And you'll put soil. Let me see, put this in here first. I think you gotta put it in real smoothly and even. Okay, so you'll put it in like so, and then the soil will go in here, and then you'll put the seeds in here, and then they watch the roots. And so it's called a root viewer because they're seeing the roots that come along the plastic piece right here. So it's super simple, but I think that from what I've heard, the kids do really love it. We had a compost viewer for a little bit, and that one's a little bit over their head. They're not quite ready for how compost works at this point. But either way, you guys will have these for your schools. I forgot to ask you, Madison, if you heard back from Joy about the other ones.
They're already purchased at the Honeybone building. I just have to pick them up before.
Awesome.
So planting information, like I've mentioned, we will be planting. It does get stressful. It does get confusing. But I will be joining you your week that you plant, and some instances we'll plant more than 1 week, depending on, different crops can be planted at different times. But I will give you a planting sheet that tells you what you're planting, how it needs to be planted, if it needs to be planted 2 inches apart, 5 inches apart, how deep it needs to be planted. Everything you need, you will get. Don't be stressed about that. You'll have all the supplies. You'll have me. I'll be there to assist you. You'll have that sheet for reference so that you know how deep, how far apart, all that good stuff. And then you will also have a sheet to record what you plant. This is so important because we kind of fell short on it last semester. You need to write down every single thing that goes into the soil in those gardens. I need to know exactly what is in there, in what bed, where it's at, and I'll be going over how to record that information properly. But just keep that in mind, and don't forget that that is something that we will be doing that week, recording exactly what we put in, when we put it in, all that good stuff. So you'll get all the information you need. Don't be stressed. That's something that we will chat about in the weeks to come because it won't be time to plant next week. So just be mindful of that as that time comes. And questions. I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see you guys. Stop presenting. Okay, questions. Real fast before we end.
I had a question about the work day tomorrow. Where are we going to be meeting for that?
I will probably be starting at Sally Z because that's one of the schools that we don't have to have access through the school. we can just meet there, start outside, look at the gardens, and then we'll move from school to school after that. So I'll guide us from school to school, but let's plan as Sally Z to be our meeting point at 1 o'clock if possible. And if you can't come at 1, that's okay. Let me know what time you can come, and I'll be in touch with you about where we're at the time. And real fast, I'll share my number in the chat, so be sure to save this. And if you can't come at 1, shoot me a text message tonight, and let me know what time you can come, so that way we can get that figured out. And also tonight, text me your Monday schedule so that I can plan our teacher meeting. But plan for Sally Z to be our meetup point tomorrow. Does that sound good? Yes.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Any other questions? A lot of the information I will give you tomorrow about the gardens and about the irrigation. So don't worry, that will all be talked about tomorrow.
I wonder if I know she's been having internet issues. One other thing I just wanted to note that we did not mention is that each of your schools has an after-school staff person. It doesn't matter if there's a person that is of higher need of support or not, you're always going to have one other human with you, and use them, utilize them. They will stand around if you don't tell them to do something. Some of them will do something, but most of them will not. So utilize them. They are another person to help you with the kids. And so split the kids up in 2 and have, whomever that person is do one thing, and you're doing the same thing, but you're splitting the kids up. So that's a really big thing too. You will always have at least one other person. There's never going to be you and 15 kids by yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Just make sure to tell Danielle that, and obviously, hopefully Gabrielle will watch this. But, yeah.
Any other questions? And if you happen to think of anything, you have my number, shoot me a text. I'll reply literally anytime. But just any last minute things before we end. Everybody good?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Maggie, you good?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I will plan to see you guys tomorrow. Shoot me a text. Let me know your schedule for Mondays, and then your information on tomorrow as well, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Madison.
Bye.
Bye.